Mm. Hey y'all, welcome to the Devon A. Morris Unfiltered call-in show. Have a seat. Let's get ready. You have any questions? Come on, call in. Come on to that Discord channel. Do me a favor, get the unfiltered crew some finger snaps. We're ready to get started here. Mondays, 8 p.m. Every single Monday, we're here. I'm excited about it. Are you? Let's get this show started, y'all. The greatest scrum show on earth. I'll see y'all soon. Enjoy. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another show. It's time for us to get going once again, get ourselves started. Just have another one of those fabulous times today. So we begin again, brand new, but this is a special time, okay? It's the beginning of Black History Month, and it'll be a problem if I didn't bring that up, right? So this begins that wonderful month that we take out, even though, I guess as a lot of the memes would say, I'm black all year round, but I'm blackety black to, this month. But here's the deal. The first thing that I want to do is I want to talk to you about a couple things. I want to first just go out there and make sure that you understand who's here helping me. I have people in the background that's always helping me out, and you can see some on screen right now, so they should wave at you because they're there, even though it's always a little bit late when these things happen. So I'm waving at them. Hopefully they wave back at you, and we'll see. But these all are always the folks that are helping me in the background, so I always appreciate them helping me out in terms of the show, period. Now, I do want to have another conversation with you, and that conversation is just a little tangent, but I think I'll do this every Monday this month, okay? Just a little bit of it, and it shouldn't take nothing but a couple minutes. So, it's the start of Black History Month. And being that it's the start of Black History Month, we're actually on our second month actually doing this, so I'm excited about that, right? I'm super excited about that. But I do want to talk to you about someone who actually helped to create this whole thing. And if I go ahead and fade my screen over to that particular person, which I'm doing right now, and I'm just going to make it so and then we can be more clear on them, okay? We're talking about Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, okay? Some of you may have heard of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, okay? He is known as the father of Black history, okay? Because he wanted to kind of put it in motion, moved us in that direction for those that didn't know. He was born back in 1875, December 19th, specifically in New Canton, Virginia. He died in April 3rd, 1950 in Washington, D.C. Now, he was the distinguished son of former slaves. He also was an author, editor, publisher, historian. I've read The Education of the Negro prior to 1861. I definitely read The History of the Black Church, and he has like 16 other titles or publications that he's kind of put out in the universe, okay? He really did not start going to school until he was about 20 years old, and that was in 1895. He actually entered in Douglas High School, where he would get his diploma in a couple years, and then he moved on to Berea College and graduate from there in 1903. Because he took a little bit longer because he had to go part-time. One of the things that slowed him down is that he was working in the coal mines. He was a miner, right? Working out there, digging up coal or helping out with it. And there's a lot of wonderful stories that brothers have told me over the years. In 1908, he received his master's from the University of Chicago. I love that because I'm from Chicago. In 1912, he earned his PhD from Harvard. He was the second black African-American, Negro, whatever you want to call them, to actually earn their diploma from, at least a PhD from Harvard. And he did that behind W.E.B. Du Bois, for those that don't know. In 1915, he actually founded the Association for Study of Negro Life and a history association as well. And then he became an honorary member of the Omega Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which I belong to. He did that February 10, 1917. 1926 is when he actually established Negro History Week. And he tried to do that to coincide with President Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Frederick Douglass's birthday. Okay. Also in 1926, he received a Spingarn Medal from the NAACP. And, years later, many years later, he would actually get a stamp in his honor. So that's another thing to really bring up and talk to him about that. So Dr. Carter G. Woodson is the whole reason why we have this particular month, or at least was the one that started this whole thing off. So I just want to make sure that I pay homage. I wear my fraternity shirt because of that. Well, at least one of them, right? You can see it's all about biking, because I also want to show you something else. And I always keep this available as well. This right here is Major Taylor. I'll talk about him next week. I do a bunch of cycling, so I'll make sure I bring up this guy next week, because he would be one of the people to actually have a nice little conversation about, but to bring up so and then we at least know what's happening, what's going on. Now, I do want to talk about some things that people have asked me some questions about personally before we actually pull anybody in, okay? And one of the things that people ask me about, so this is like education before we start pulling people in. One of the things that people asked me about from the very beginning of the show was about a pilot. Now, some of you all have an idea what a pilot is. I was having a conversation today with someone who is actually starting safe. Matter of fact, let me say this. For those that are here, I don't advertise a lot of things, but if you are an experienced RTE, please reach out to me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then don't worry about it. But if you are experienced RTE, if you are experienced with the Scaled Agile framework, please reach out to me. I know a lot of people be looking for different opportunities, but I told someone I would actually mention it. So, and then it's one of those things that we can see if anybody wants to come in and have a conversation about that. But let's talk about this little pilot that I was telling a person about earlier today. One of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is that a lot of times I will do what's called a pilot when I am starting Agile, Scrum, just about anything. One of the things that I really try to do is have small wins along the way. Small wins end up building confidence for you to have bigger wins later. And it's always important to establish things so you can have bigger wins later. The bigger wins are super important. Now, why do I bring that up to you? It's really simple. A lot of times when you start out, you may start off with one team that's going to jump out there and do Scrum. One team that's going to jump out there and be the first ones to kind of get blessed or baptized or just brought into this thing. Now, the unique thing for that team is that they're going to make a lot of mistakes. They're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. And the benefit for them is they're the earlier ones that's learning. They will start to establish a lot of the other things that happen. So think about, in an organization, you have an entire organization doing Scrum, but I'm going to take this one team and pilot with this one team. So a good example I can give of that, a team that I worked with a few years ago, right in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the first thing we did before they started their 6 teams, right, is that we started off with one team. Now, that one team, we knew we'd have to give some extra support to. We knew we'd have to help out just a tad bit more as they were going on their journey, because they're going to experience all the hiccups. So if you have a bunch of documentation, if you have a lot of regulation, if you have a lot of things that you're going through, period, they will be the ones that hit those roadblocks first. But it's nice to have a team hit those roadblocks first because they help everyone else out. Okay? A perfect example. Let's just bring up a Microsoft project plan. So I've had situations where we've had to build a project plan. Well, a project plan works out very well for certain efforts. But for agile teams, it doesn't always work out well to have a project plan that is established, especially one that works off the classic waterfall way of doing things. Sometimes an organization is dogmatic about trying or making sure that happens because it fits into what the rest of the organization is actually doing. And so one of the things that a team might go through is trying to figure out how to make that thing work, or how to meet the essence of what it provides without sacrificing all of what we know is the right thing to do. Because when you think about the manifesto, we will say working software over comprehensive documentation. And I've been fortunate enough to build 2,000-3,000 line Microsoft project plans, Primavera plans. And to say to an organization, we're going to get rid of that wholeheartedly, can be hard for a lot of the executives to deal with. But it would be nice if we was able to have a pilot and eliminate things like that. See how we can make the world work within this organization without doing a project plan like that. That would be a nice thing to test out, because why am I testing that out? To get some feedback sooner. One of the things that you must understand is that one of the core elements of Scrum, well, there's really 3 of them, right? But one of the core elements that I really like to talk about is working product every sprint. And we have a tendency to get that wrong. But how do we get to a place where we do working product every sprint? Well, one of the things for us to do is to try things out. If I got to build a project plan and that project plan is heavy, I have less time to actually deliver. So this first team, if they actually go ahead and they're running the pilot, and maybe they're able to skip that plan, and maybe they're able to do this thing over here and try this to meet the essence of what the plan offers, then that could be helpful for everybody else in the organization. Otherwise, if I had these 6 teams that's ready to start and we just start with one, if we started with all 6, everybody's having the same pain. So one of the reasons why you want to do a pilot is to make sure that everybody, right, doesn't have the same pain along the way. Does not have the same pain along the way. So that's very, very important. So that being said, we do have someone waiting. So I am going to kind of move us in a direction of bringing someone in, okay? And we will talk to them. And let me go ahead and share this screen, pull them in, and let's see. I see that they muted themselves. I would love for them to unmute themselves, and then we can go from there. I see that you don't have your screen up, so I'm going to go ahead and silhouette that out. So I see your name is Casey. So how are you doing, Casey?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's Monday. Excited to be here. Thank you for the call-in show. It's been a great experience so far. And I do have a question about Scrum.
Okay.
You know, how Scrum is different from Agile? Is it the same thing? There's so many certifications and programs, and different companies define it differently. So it's a little confusing. Is Scrum different from Agile? And if it's not, or if it is, how do you determine if it's successful?
Well, okay. Let's divide that question up into several smaller pieces. piece number one that we should talk about. Agile and Scrum are two very different things. Scrum is a framework. It is a framework that gives you some very specific things to follow. Okay, you kind of have this time box that kind of occurs. You make a plan for within that time box what you can do. You get to you evaluate that plan along the way. You get to the end and you learn about the product and the process, and you start all over again. Agile is a lot different, because when you think about Agile, you have to think about something that we're going to live and breathe. So the best way that I describe Agile is like describing a principle like thou shalt not steal. No one tells you exactly how to not steal. Thou shalt not kill. Nobody tells you exactly how to perform that principle. So what you do is you incorporate that into your everyday actions, into your everyday life and behavior. So I always think of Agile as being something that we live and breathe. We incorporate into our everyday actions and behaviors. While Scrum is something that you do. So basically, Scrum lives and breathes the values and principles of the Agile Manifesto. So you're not always going to get Scrum right, but you're going to get more right if you also live and breathe the values and principles of the Agile Manifesto. Because Scrum is Agile, but Agile's not Scrum. It's just like I can go and say another framework, Kanban is Agile, but Agile's not Kanban. Just Agile is just a collection of values and principles. And here's the amazing thing about Agile that I want to make sure everyone is aware of that's on this call right now, that's live, that will see this later. This is the first 10 days from now, February 11th through February 13th. Back in 2001, the 17 authors of the Agile Manifesto came together and they created that Agile Manifesto. Pretty much, we're 10 days short of the 20-year anniversary. And you are likely going to see every Scrum-related organization talk about it. Talk about it to some degree. Because that is the manifesto that probably helped to drive things afterwards. Even though Scrum existed prior to it, even though extreme programming existed prior to it, Crystal, feature-driven development, many things existed prior to it, but that helped to establish what the manifesto ultimately became. Okay? So that's really important. Now, when it comes to success is a different problem. Success is a very different problem, because you're going to have to get the organization to help define the characteristics of what success is and what success looks like moving forward. And that's something that you will have to work through to help them decide. Now, many people will measure success by how many, if they get all of the user stories that they committed to done at the end of a sprint. However, I prefer to measure success by having a goal and doing what it takes to meet that actual goal. And having success in meeting the goal helps to have success within that sprint. But beyond that, the organization will have to decide how Scrum helps to meet their strategic or overall direction. Does that make sense, Casey?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually in change management, and the organization I work for is considering shifting more towards agile practices. So we're trying to choose what's the best approach as far as training and change management for the entire organization. But those differences between Scrum and Agile and Kanban, they really drive me crazy, because I just can't understand, like, there's so many things, and it's really tough sometimes to pinpoint how the team will operate in the new environment, if one or the other, like Scrum or Kanban, is better for them. Do you have like a preferred framework for organizations that are just undergoing agile journey, agile transition?
Well, what I would say to you is Agile can be like a buffet and you can pick and choose what works best for you, right?
Oh, that's
I
cool.
find that when I walk into an organization, I'm walking in the room with three things in the toolkit: Scrum, Kanban, and extreme programming, especially if I'm dealing with software. Those are the classic three that I'm going to walk in with. Now, do I see people also walk in with a scaling framework as well? Yeah, and a lot of times that whatever scaling framework you decide to use, this right here, these three things are the foundation for the scaling frameworks, okay? So you will see that occur, but if you think Scrum, Kanban, and extreme programming, you're actually doing pretty well. And what I have the tendency of doing is using Scrum for projects in general, using Kanban for operations, things that change a lot more rapidly, where we just need to go from top to bottom in the product backlog, other things as well. So I use it for different reasons, but you got to figure out what works best in your organization. So I would never say to you that one framework will meet all of your needs. That's the reason why I say treat it as a buffet, so you get the best of the best options, see what actually works for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, but is it possible to mix Scrum and Kanban in one? Since there's such a variety.
Have I seen teams use 50% of their time on Scrum efforts? So 50% of their time doing Scrum on projects and 50% of their time supporting production with Kanban? Yes, I've seen teams do that.
Uh-huh.
Have I seen part of an organization use Kanban, another part use Scrum, and then other ones use whatever traditional hybrid stuff they use? Yes. I always see these different things. That's the reason why I say run an experiment, run a pilot, and try to figure out what works best. Does that make sense? Because a pilot is going to give you the data that's going to help you make the right decision.
Yeah,
And that's the
absolutely.
key.
Absolutely. So yeah, probably just do a project or something like that, a test project that's not too financially burdening for the organization, to see if the team can actually uh, implement the framework from the day
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and you're never going to be
And
perfect.
training.
With training, we obviously do certified Scrum training, certified Scrum Master training. We do product owner training. We do the whole litany of training. But what I would say to you is something really simple. You got a lot of professionals out here that know Scrum. You probably will need some coaches that are more experienced to help you along the way. You're going to need training to baseline what people are learning. Don't let Scrum be the only thing. Learn Kanban, learn extreme programming. Get that basics so everybody has a baseline. That baseline is going to be important for you. So even though I do the certified Scrum Master, I do the certified Scrum Product Owner and other things, that may not be the right thing for you in your organization. You may decide we need to dive a little bit deeper into Kanban, or we need to dive a little bit deeper into extreme programming. So don't lock yourself into one thing. Let the data guide the direction that you're going in. Make sense?
Yeah, and I guess one more question. Is the corporate training in Scrum, if I am to onboard my team, is it different from like those certification courses? Because they don't really need to get certified. They just need to be proficient enough to do the work, right? And to understand the dynamics of Agile and
Okay.
Scrum. So is there different approach to or different resources that we should be using or looking to when it comes to corporate training?
Well, you can always get a Agile Scrum class that doesn't have a certification associated with it. That's always an option. But my advice would be to have some coaching happen on the ground, because they will need their hands held along the way when they run into problems. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, totally.
at that point, if you're not going to get them a lot of if you're not going to get them a lot of training, at least get them some coaching to help them for when they hit the pitfalls. That's more what I'm worried about in that situation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I'll give you a perfect example of something that we do. A lot of times what I'll do with some organizations is do a combination of coaching and training for a couple weeks. So and then they can at least get that quick start and start moving forward. Does that make sense? So something like that might be beneficial, but that's just a good place to start. But whatever it is, don't start with everybody starting immediately. Pilot it first, train that first team, and then start training teams after that. I have a few organizations that I'm taking through that same path, and it's working very well for them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all this valuable information and advice. That's been great. Thank you.
Casey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to say, have a wonderful evening, okay?
You too. Bye.
All right, have a good one. Okay, everyone, that was actually a good call. A lot of information to provide in there. A lot of information we go a lot deeper on, and maybe we will do that again in the near future. I have someone else that I want to bring up on the call, and bring them in, and I'll do that immediately. Let me grab them. Oh, wait a minute now. Hold up. It doesn't want to allow me to bring them in, so give me a second here. I think we may have solved that hiccup. All right, sir, I hear you. Look at that. How you doing, man?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm all right. I know this guy. Please say who you are.
Well, my name is Victor Adatiba, and I am Bearded Eagle alumni.
There you go. Victor, how you been, man?
Doing wonderfully well. I can't complain. Just wanted to call into the show and ask you a few questions, get some feedback from you, and see how I can learn a little bit.
Now, hold up. I'm going to stop you right there before we move on any place, because, again, I haven't worked with you. You've been through my training. You've actually been in classes with me where you actually have helped other people out. You have helped several people out, and you have actually made an amazing journey. And you've took Scrum by the horns, and you've run across the world with it at this point, right? So realistically, you are a shining example, and you pretty much did it. You pretty much took Scrum like I took Scrum. Grabbed it and said, I'm gonna make it happen. I like your shirt, man. It says my wife is dope. Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna have you tell people your story in just a minute, because when that does happen, well, actually, I want you to tell how you came to Scrum, and tell a little bit about your story, so and then other people can understand and get an idea of what they need to do. I'm gonna give you the floor, Victor, for just a minute.
So, I wasn't exactly familiar with what Scrum was, but I worked in an organization with a family member who was, kind of working on software. And so little did I know, I spent some time doing Scrum before I was actually certified in doing Scrum. And so I heard about Scrum through a friend of mine by name, and went and took the class off of his suggestion and got certified. And it kind of just lit up my world and just made a lot of things that I had been doing previously for years even make sense. And so once it made sense, I hit the ground running after I got out. Well, I didn't hit the ground running. I waited about 18 months after I got out the program before I actually made a move, because a lot of us are fearful sometimes to make changes into an unknown position. But eventually I finally made that change. And
now hold on, Victor. Now stop right there, because I remember you coming back to class and telling me you had not done nothing. Right. Do you remember that?
I do remember.
And what did I say to you?
You just got to do it. Like, why not? Why spend the money to get certified? Why invest the time, 2 days of your life, and not at least make the first and second and third step to changing your life?
That's it. Continue.
And so after the 18 months, when I did finally decide to make a change, success. First 2 interviews, 2 offers. Had to make a decision between 120K locally as a full-time employee, 135K in California as a contractor.
Mm.
So made the decision to stay local, and I've been with the company and had numerous offers since then. And so I recently just got an offer to go work with Nike, and so I'm at Nike as
Whoa,
a
whoa, 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 whoa. That's new news to me, man.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Congratulations. Let me just
Thank,
hold on. Tip my hat to you, man.
thank you.
Wow, congratulations. I've never worked for Nike. I've worked for a lot of organizations, and Nike would be on my list of places that I would love to walk in a building and just check them out, but I've never worked for Nike, man. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And so going in as an agile coach, and so the question that I wanted to ask you um, is, as an agile coach is coming into a new organization, the new guy on the block, how do you, I guess, introduce yourselves to the scrum masters and the product owners and the dev teams you'll be working with, and how do you begin to build that relationship? I already got some one-on-ones planned with some people. I've already got some, you know, just fact-finding meetings with some folks just to get to know who they are and for them to know who I am. But, outside of that, what can I do to make sure that I really make an impact when I meet them and, make sure that impact is felt throughout the organization?
The best thing I can tell you to do is serve everybody. Serve everybody, and you know exactly how to do that already, right? Because what's going to happen is when you walk through the door, you will have some people that will trust you because of titles, but you know just as well as I do those developers who are not, because you're the new kid on the block. And you know as just as well as I do that once you get through a couple of sprints, you will win them over easy. Okay, you already know how to do that. There's no question on that. The bigger concern that I would have is, where are you in the pecking order, politically speaking? Because that's going to have a huge impact. And whoever you are reporting to, making sure you understand how you make them look good, how you help them get to the place that they're trying to go to. And a lot of times they're going to have strategic directions that they have been provided that they are going toward. There's a reason why they're bringing you in there. They're trying to move themselves in a direction, and I want you to make them look as successful as possible. Because if you make them look as successful as possible, you already have all the tools. See, I can say this, right? Go in and just do Scrum. I know you're going to do that. I don't have any question about you going in and just doing Scrum. Are you working with teams on the ground? So
Yes, I'll be working with some teams on the ground.
okay, great. So now I would be evaluating where they have problems at. I would go in and do a retrospective to see what can we improve. I would imagine that probably one of the biggest places that you can work with them on is always engineering practices. So I'd be trying to establish ways that we can deliver quicker. You know that they probably got issues on the product side with the product owner. Maybe they got a good product owner, then you can work on return on investment. So realistically for you, it's going to be all about just tweaking and helping them improve. If they're saying to you they got agile coaches and everything else already, you already know that they're on the journey, but you also know that they're not doing it right. You also know they're not doing it perfectly. You also know that there's many opportunities on what you can fix. So I find a place where I can baseline things. So and then I can see improvement happen. Now I'm going to tell you something that I tell brand new Scrum Masters, and I know you're going to be able to do this and benefit it from tremendously. Do yourself a favor. The first 6 weeks, run Scrum on you, the process that you're following while you're there for the first 6 to 8 weeks. 1 day sprints. 1 day sprints. Now, I'm going to ask you this question because I know you're going to have an amazing answer for me. I know it's going to be the exact answer that I want you to give me. Why do I want you to run 1 day sprints?
So that I can iterate faster. right? So that I can give myself feedback on what I'm doing daily, and every day I can come in and be a better employee than I was the day before.
Exactly. That's what I want you to do. If there's one thing that I can tell everybody that is listening to do, is to run Scrum on yourself, right? Victor, I remember back when I went from Capital One to USAA down in San Antonio. And I was intimidated because there was these other coaches that was better than me. And I did 1-day sprints. And in 2 months, I went from having 2 teams to a 200-person portfolio where we delivered the first project that you scan a check and deposit in the bank. That was October, literally December starting January. I had a 200-person agile portfolio that I was dealing with and I was running after they fired a bunch of people, right? So the idea is that when you do that, you actually position yourself for, super greatness. Super greatness on just a huge level. And by having those improvements, it is going to be great. It's going to be a plus. So the other thing I would say to you is you have several certifications. What certifications do you actually have? Tell me the certifications you have, because I want other people to hear the certs you have.
So I'm a certified Scrum Master, advanced certified Scrum Master, certified Scrum Professional, certified Scrum Product Owner, professional Scrum Master, Amazon Cloud Practitioner.
Okay.
Project Management, PMP. Safe Agilist.
So many you don't even remember them.
Yeah.
You understand where I'm coming from?
Those are all the IT Scrum related ones. Oh, I got a few Microsoft certifications too.
But think about this. The PMP is going to help you, right? Because you know that they have traditional project management in there. So you can have conversations with every single PM in the house. A PM can't just walk you away and say, I don't want to talk to you. The whole reason why I got my PMP is so nobody would be able to do that to me. So you have that under your belt. And you actually got that during the pandemic. The biggest advice I gave everybody who talked to me, people, was certify up during the pandemic. Certify up during the pandemic. Get all the certs during the pandemic that you can, because when you get those certs and you come out of this, you're going to be in position for success. So having that PMP, and I'm going to say this to everybody here, because I've had to have this conversation today with someone. You would agree with me, Victor, that the PMP does not clash with Scrum and Agile, right?
I would agree.
Okay. PMP's process is like initiating, planning, executing, controlling, monitoring, happening in cycle. Sometimes there's a little overlap, and closing. And Scrum fits right into that with no problem. And the PMBOK is half Agile now, right?
Right.
It's half Agile now.
I have a buddy who took the new test, I think version 6 or something. I don't know, of the new test last week, I think, and he said literally half of the tests were Agile questions.
Yeah, because half of the book, if you go look at that PMBOK book, if you look at it 3-4 years ago and look at what they have now, roughly half of the book is Agile, and it has a title on there, the Agile Alliance. If you know the Scrum Alliance, you know the Agile Alliance. They helped to author that book, or they had input into that book. So we're talking about, it's a major part of everything, but the key statement is being able to have those project conversations and to think like project people can think. That's the key, and that's going to be what will be beneficial for you in the long run. In the long run. Now, what else? Safe. What company that is trying to scale is not thinking safe today? There's not a whole lot of them, right?
Not many, no.
Regardless of what you think about safe, is irrelevant to me. The idea is that organizations are doing safe and they're having varying degrees of success. Having an understanding of safe is going to be helpful for you, right? Because safe brings in things like portfolio management, Lean portfolio management. You understand that statement, right? Lean portfolio management, right? See, because the Scale Agile framework came in and took care of a lot of things that Scrum at the most basic level, Kanban at the most extreme programming at the most basic level, all that other stuff that happens above that, nobody was really talking about. And so you have some knowledge into that. That, the PMP, is all going to be helpful for you. So when I think about you, it's just really going in there and starting to show that you are the top dog in the building. Period. Because what's going to happen is they only got limited amount of time with you.
Right.
But you know that already. Right. You know they only got a limited amount of time with you. And since they only have a limited amount of time with you, guess what? You give them all that you can give them. But here's what I want you to do. Little one, hello, 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 hello. I'm over here waving.
Say hi.
I got a hi.
Come on, baby.
Oh, okay. I like that. So here's what I do want you to do. Okay. I want you to come out with a story similar to this. Based on outcomes. So you know how we talk about inputs, and then we have the things that transform those inputs into outputs, but then you have the outcome. I want you to be able to, in 6 months, tell me some outcome related stories. Now, what do I mean by that? One of my outcome related stories is that I helped turn $6 million into $40 million worth of return on investment. That's what I want to hear you say when you come back out. Now, I'm going to tell you why I say that. The number one place, and you tell me if this is true or not, the number one place where we tend to not work, where we don't work, is with the product owner. Am I right about that?
That's absolutely correct, and it happens for various reasons. One, because that's the least right number of product owners is on the team. We've usually got 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes 9 developers, and so generally speaking, our time is spent with the developers. Secondly, depending on how the project owner got to be the product owner got to be the product owner. Sometimes they were previous project managers or project leads, and so there can be a distrust of the process or of the Scrum Master role. And so sometimes they don't always want to let us in as much as they should if they haven't kind of come up the agile track into that position.
Hey man, let me tell you something. According to the room, you already the top dog, man. So I don't even know why you're talking to me. You already the top dog according to the room now. But here's what I would challenge you, because you know I'm always going to give you a challenge, and you know you can always come to me, because you know you got that bat line directly to me. Here's what I want you to do, Vic. I want you to start focusing on having an impact on the product side of the house. I want you to come back with a story to me on how you changed a line of business related to Nike. Because I want you to leave with those numbers. Because once you leave with those numbers, then you can write your ticket wherever you want to write your ticket at.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So my assignment from me to you is I want you to, like in today's world, Vic, when I walk into an organization and I literally got off a call with an executive today. I had it over lunch, right? And she reports directly to the president, right? And immediately, as soon as we got in there, we started having a conversation. But the most immediate thing that I noticed was the business product owner involvement. And so back in the day, from 2005 until 2012, for me, as long as a person could write the requirements, I didn't care about product owners. Okay? And you probably understand how I feel. When I go into organizations today, classically the first place I start, Vic, is with the product owner. I've kind of flipped the script from the way I used to be, and I do that for a reason. But I ask you, why do you think I do that?
Well, I think oftentimes, new scrum masters come in and they underestimate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the scrum guy tells us that all of the positions are equal, right? No one
Mm-hmm.
position is supposed to be more important than another. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that organizations have fully understood and internalized that yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so generally speaking, the product owner is the most influential person on the team. And they
Right.
exert an amazing amount of influence on the developers and the way their process works. And so you can get the developers up to speed and as agile as possible, but if the product owner is bucking the system or hasn't gotten in line yet, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
the team will still be out of whack.
Okay.
And reverse, if you can get the product owner um, bought in,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be so much easier to get the rest of the team to buy in as well.
Okay. Let me add something to your toolkit. Here's how I want you to start thinking. You know already, Vic, you know this with no question. We never deliver everything, right?
Absolutely not.
You also know that an epic, and for those that don't know what I'm talking about, an epic is just a big requirement. That's all it really is. It's just a big requirement. We classically don't work on the big requirements. We break those requirements down into something that's small enough to fit into a sprint, and we classically call that a user story. Just loose statement, right? You know this as well, Vic. Classically with an epic, with a user story, can you get the return on investment out of one user story?
Not usually.
Okay. So that means normally your ROI comes from the epic level, right?
Right.
Now you know just as well as I, splitting, slicing stories, when I say splitting or slicing, I am saying dividing into smaller pieces. You know that that's an art and not a science, right?
Right.
You also know the way we split can have an impact on value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means if you were able to walk in that building value focused and start working with the PO so you can make sure that you are taking an epic, finding the 80-20 sweet spot, taking that 20 that's most important, putting that toward the top of your product backlog, and then taking that and splitting that stuff that's remaining and finding that 80-20 sweet spot and taking that most important stuff and putting that toward the top of your product backlog. And then take that, even if that's still too big, and find that 80-20 and take that 20 and put it where, Vic? Toward the top of the product backlog.
Right.
Now, why do I want you to do that? Because I'm trying to get you to drive outcome. Vic, it is no longer good enough for you to just deliver.
Mm-hmm.
We passed that stage, man. And I want everybody that is out there in the live world to understand that when you make it to this level, we are past the fact that you're delivering. I expect you to deliver, Vic. What I expect you to deliver, though, is more value. I expect for every story point, for every hour that is spent working on something, that we are getting more and more return for every piece of time that is spent. I'm asking for you, when you walk through Nike's doors, the number one thing I want you to do is to deliver outcomes. That's the number one thing I want you to do, Vic, because I know that if you go in when you go into Nike and you deliver outcomes, I know that you are writing your own ticket. I know that you can do that because here's the deal. I know you know all those other things that go along with that. I know you know that. But now I need you to take all those things and tie them together. I need you to tie every single one of those things together because I need for you to deliver outcomes, Vic. Because when you deliver outcomes, Vic, that changes the world. Because then everybody wants to work with Vic in the organization. Then Vic can't be touched. I'm not worried about you delivering, Vic. I wasn't worried about you delivering before you. I wasn't worried about you delivering. Except when you wasn't delivering for you. Once you started delivering for you, I was no longer worried about you delivering. Because once you started delivering for you, you built the confidence up so you can deliver for everybody else. But I want to hear you say to me later, man, I delivered $100 million worth of value. Do you understand that difference, right? Do you understand that difference? It's not saying, hey, this team did that team did this. It is saying, I delivered $100 million worth of value, man.
Right.
Wait, time out. Who can say anything to you at that point?
I don't know what the CEO's name is, but he might be the only one.
So what I'm doing is I'm telling you to just take it to a whole nother level, Vic. A whole nother level. And you got all those tools put together ready for you to do that. I want you to stop focusing on all the basics because the basics is a no-brainer, man. The basics is a no-brainer for you. I want you to challenge yourself, Vic. I want you to challenge yourself. You go in there, you get those teams to be delivering working product, valuable working product every single sprint. The moment you do that, guess what they're going to put you on? The most valuable products in the building. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Because I'm an owner of Bearded Eagle. I do that for a reason. I like owning Bearded Eagle. I remember when I had that first $100,000 plus kind of piece of paper that they put in front of me and said, hey man, we'll give you this. Me looking and saying, hey, we got to take it, man. We can't do nothing else but take it, right? I remember that. But you know you can make that all day, every day now. You know that.
Right.
But with the stories that go along with that is how you're going to change not just the people that you've already changed, but the people that's coming behind those people. Because Vic is one of my mentees. And the reason why I'm going at Vic like this is because I know Vic only talks to me when he needs something. I know that. Vic only talks to me when he needs something. Because Vic will go and execute, and once he has a real question, then Vic will come and have a conversation with me. And I'm glad he's doing it right now because we could have had this conversation offline. And I'd have had no problem with having it offline because he got my number. He can call me anytime, right? But I'm telling you, Vic, if you go in there and you start focusing on the business and solving the business problems, you have solved a major problem that most organizations have. So I don't want you to be against the POs anymore. I don't want you to think about them not. A lot of times they're not engaged because they have no reason to be engaged because we're doing things that's counter to their ability to do something productive. So the question now is, when you walk through that door, could you come out of there outcome, outcomes? That's what I want to see from you. Outcomes, outcomes, outcomes. If you come to me, Vic, and say, we delivered on a sprint, I'm going to say, I'm gonna laugh. I'm going to say, yeah, okay. All right. Okay. If you tell me that one of the people that you taught, that you mentored, delivered, I'll be like, but you wouldn't be like, come on, man. Holler at me about something else. So, if I was to rewind back to the very beginning of this conversation, Vic, you said walking in the door, what should you do? Walking through the door, I firmly believe that you should deliver outcomes so you can write your ticket. You deliver outcomes through making sure the major parts of the organization are having the outcomes that drive the financial viability of the organization. Now you have just changed Agile into something that is mission critical. You understand where I'm coming from?
I do.
So yeah, man. All right. Vic. What else? Anything else, Vic?
Man, I think that's it. I'm excited. I look forward to. I'm gonna take the next. When's your next CSM class? Because I need to get back in there. Every time I go to a new role, I like to go back and do my refreshers with you guys because you guys keep me sharp.
Whenever, man. I have something coming up in about 2 weeks. So probably February, some like the second to last week in February, and then like March 6th, because I'm doing a bunch of private classes. But you know all you gotta do is pick it and just come through. You know I got you.
I'll be there.
So yeah. So on that note, Vic, man, it's nice seeing you, brother.
You too, man.
And when you go there, just take a picture in front of the Nike sign and send it to everybody. When you go there, do that, man. Other than that, Vic, I'm gonna say, look, man, let's before you just jump off and complete. You're not moving there. You're just gonna be virtual, right?
Well, they say virtual until after COVID, but who knows when COVID is gonna be over with? But I wouldn't mind going out there.
Okay, all right. Well, you know what? Here's what we got to do, man. We got to break bread. So, before you even go remotely move on a roll, or we let this COVID die down a little bit, I got you for dinner someplace. Let me know.
Wonderful.
All right. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Vic. Have a good one, man.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. Love it. That was a wonderful conversation. That took a long time, but I'm glad it took a long time because that is a lot of information, and it's not something that I would normally tell many people. Many people. I wouldn't even give them anything even close to that, because I know Vic very well, and I know what he's trying to do, and I know he's going to do great things. So I'm looking forward to seeing what his outcomes are. But on that note, it is time for us to say, this is done. The very first one during Black History Month. I'm going to say, hey, y'all, I appreciate your time. This has been a good one. We're going to chop this up a little bit, send it out to everybody some more, and then go from there. Other than that, I'm going to say, have a wonderful evening. I will see you next week. Thank you so much.